Hey, what's going on, everybody? So before we went out and got some hands-on time with the new Teryx H2 from Kawasaki, we asked you what questions that you want answered. So in this video, we're gonna run through the top 10 questions we got in all the comments and other forms of communication, and hopefully answer some of the questions that you have, put some things to bed for you, and give you the answers you're looking for. So we'll try to line them out one by one. And at the end, I'll give you a couple kind of tidbits or extras as well. So let's jump into it and get started with question number one. So the first question is related to horsepower. When Kawasaki released the machine, they released it stating that it had 250 horsepower. And then there's a little caveat that says it's measured by a certain standard. I believe it's the ISO standard rather than the SAE standard. So there's a couple things to understand about that, but the long story short is the standard that they tested the machine on does not include accessories and other things, but there's a few little caveats in there and whatnot to be aware of. So as a general rule, the horsepower on a ISO tested machine in comparison to an SAE tested machine is probably going to be 10 to 15% difference in horsepower between the two. But really it's hard to say until we get one of these machines on a dyno. I will say seat of the pants and feel and everything else, it feels like 250 horsepower to me. We had some great time in the desert. It will get up to speed quickly. It'll maintain speed quickly. So as far as question number one, horsepower, how it's compared to the SAE standard, I would say it's hard to say with getting out on a dyno, but it's got plenty of power. You're definitely not hurting for power. One cool thing about this machine, just on power, is it does have those three different power modes. There's low power, normal power, and all the power. And there is quite a bit of difference between the two. It's not clear on how they're getting to that power. It looks to me like they're likely bypassing the supercharger somehow, allowing some of that power to bleed off. But we did find out from one of the engineers that in low power mode, this machine still has 38 horsepower more than the regular KRX. So it rips good, and when you turn it to full power, you definitely feel the difference between them. I will say, like in the desert, high power, this machine, it just feels at home. Like it feels like that's its happy place. In the home or in the desert, high speed, whoops, all that kind of stuff. It feels right at home in that space. Much like the KRX, the regular KRX, it feels at home in the rocks. The next question that people have, or question number two, is a weight comparison between the three kind of top tier models, which would be the Polaris Pro R 4-seat machine, the Maverick R 4-seat machine, and this new Kawasaki Teryx H2 4-seat machine. So I'll put the actual statistics up here on the screen. But I will say in round numbers, it's 100 to 200 pounds lighter, the Kawasaki is, than both of those two models. So you'll see them here. But as far as power to weight ratio, all that kind of stuff goes with this new Kawasaki machine. It is a lighter weight machine. You are going to have a greater power to weight ratio than those other machines, more than likely. The next question we had is, how's it going to do in the mud and in the water? So it's hard to say. We didn't spend any time in the mud or the water. I would say it's going to do about as good as the Pro R or the Maverick R. Both of them are, they're similar spec machines, and their target is not the mud or the water. Their target demo, or the terrain they're targeting, is the desert and the dunes. That's what they're going out with those machines. And this Kawasaki Teryx H2 is going after their goal. The mission of the machine is to dominate the desert and dominate the dunes. And I really think it has a great shot at doing that. So as far as how it does in the mud and water, the only thing I'll say that could be related to it is it's really well built. The fit and finish is awesome on it. It feels almost automotive quality. It feels next level. It's really refined, I guess is the word that their marketing team was using. But it feels refined. It feels whole. It feels like it's ready to go. So mud and water, can't really answer it exactly, other than saying it's really well built and it's going to do just as good as your Pro R or your Mav Rs. Okay, let's get to the next question, which is, why did Kawasaki go with the CVT when the other manufacturers, specifically Can-Am and to start with Honda, are going with the DCT? Why did Kawasaki stick with a CVT machine? The reason why is this machine makes peak power at 9,000 RPMs. So that's kind of its sweet spot where it's making the most power. With the CVT, you can get consistently at that 9,000 RPM range quick and just stay there. So you're right in the power band or the peak power situation with the H2 motor. And the CVT allows you to do that. If they went with the DCT, there would be dips in acceleration and other things. I'm sure there's a variety of other reasons why. We didn't get any information on whether or not another CV or a new transmission is coming for it, or if that's something there in the works. It very well could be. This machine has been worked on for the last 6 years or so, so it's been a long time in development. So they definitely could be working on something else, but even if they were, they wouldn't tell us, right? That's not how it works. So why did they stick with the CVT? They really felt like it would be able to hold power longer and better. And it's, you know, you've seen how Polaris is doing in the desert. I think it's pretty clear that Polaris is dominating desert races with their Pro R, and it has a CVT. There are a few things that are unique about the H2 CVT. One thing is it does have cooling fins on the back side of the primary. So that's going to help with cooling, obviously. It has a temperature sensor on the outside as well, so, or on the outlet anyway, so you can see or hear, or so you can see anyway of what the temperature is. It also has ducting on the inside to help with cooling as well. So, and then it also has a needle bearing on the clutch as well. You know, all in all, there's a variety of reasons they stuck with the CVT, but the Kawasaki, the H2 runs real well with it. Great power, like I said, instant power from the motor. Clutching's ready to go as well. The next question is kind of an, I guess, anecdotal one. Does it really feel like 250 horsepower? I would say yes, it absolutely feels like 250 horsepower. Not only down low, right, when you're getting up to speed and you're getting ready to take off through the desert, the dunes, or whatever else. Down low, yes, it takes off quick, instant power, ready to go. But man, when you want to go from 50 to 90, it gets there real quick as well. And I'm sure you've seen by now, or you may or may not have seen by now anyway, we did have this machine up and over 100 miles an hour as a stock machine. It has the power to get it there. It does feel like 250 horsepower. It does feel like a next level machine. It's pretty awesome to see what Kawasaki has done. Now this one's likely coming from all the Kawasaki KRX fans, and that is, how is the low gear? How does it do in rock crawling? Well, long story short, we didn't really get the chance to do any rock crawling while we were out there. However, it does seem like this machine is tuned for the desert and tuned for the dunes. The low gear does kind of a higher top speed, so you're not, you know, it doesn't have that real short gear or whatever there to you know, go real low speeds and have real torquey low end in low gear. So my assumption is it's going to do okay. It's going to do probably just as good as your Mav Rs and your Pro Rs in rock crawling. Because it's, you know, they're built for the desert. It's built for the desert as well. The Polaris may do a little bit better. They do have that rock crawling mode on the Ultimate machines. So they do have, you know, that, and may do a little bit better. It's hard to say. We'll definitely have the opportunity at some point, hopefully in the near future, to get one of these in the rocks and be able to answer that for you for sure. But I'll say it's not tuned for the rocks. It's not designed for the rocks. But neither is the Mav R or the Pro R. They're not designed specifically for that terrain. So more than likely it's going to perform just as good or better than those. You won't really know until we get some experience in it, and we don't have that yet. We'll get there. Question 7, that is, when is the two-door coming, or where's the two-seat? The funny thing about this is, if they would have come out with a two-seater, everybody would have been asking, when's the four-seater going to come? If they would have came out with now that they came out with a four-seater, everybody's asking where the two-seater is. They didn't come out and say there's a two-seater in the works, or there's one coming, or there's one in the pipeline, or anything else. I think we can all assume that one's coming. I would say it probably wouldn't be this year, just because these machines are coming out and hitting dealers soon, and then the first ones are going to be the Ultimate 5-seaters, and then the Deluxe 5-seaters. And then the next ones are going to be the standard model and the Deluxe 4-seater. So, and those won't hit until October. So I would say with those coming out in October, it's safe to say you're not going to see a two-seater this year, maybe the next, but really there is no official word on whether or not a two-seater is coming out. I will see there's been plenty of Photoshops out on the internet, plenty of people photoshopping a two-seater as what it would look like. Man, it's a good looking machine. How it performs, who knows, but put 250 horsepower in a two-seat machine, I imagine it will rip pretty good. So who knows, we'll have to wait and see on when the two-seater is coming, or if it's coming at all. All right, the next question, which is question number 8. So this one is just a bunch of different ways of asking about the suspension, from why didn't they mount it to the lower A-arm, to how does it feel in comparison to the KRX, to a variety of other things. So I'll just kind of sum it up in answering it this way. The suspension is impressive in just about every way that it could be. The easiest or simplest example is when we first left, and we're just starting on the trail, riding the machine, it just felt smooth from the start. So the small chattery stuff and whatnot really didn't feel anything. From there, we went out and got up to doing first 50, then 60, then 70 miles an hour through some pretty solid whoops. And it ate them up like it should. Like, it ate them up really well. And it was really impressive to feel the suspension do its thing. So the suspension's impressive. I'm telling you, we were booking through the desert, doing things we shouldn't have, hitting washouts and whatnot. And it just felt like the suspension was doing things that it just shouldn't be able to do. So all in all, it was impressive. One of the most impressive things about the suspension is the electronic suspension. The rigs we did drive were the electronic suspension rigs. The whole system's impressive. It reacts automatically. It does have on the steering wheel the ability to select from firm, normal, and soft suspension. I found it awesome to be able to adjust those. I will say it will make the adjustments it needs to when it needs to, and it does that based on 6 different things. I won't name them all, but a few of them are the engine speed, what the sensors are saying at each of the 4 corners. There are sensors at each of the 4 corners of the machine down near the bottom of the shock body, or the bottom of the shocks anyway. And it's using that information and engine speed and the computer that's tied to the suspension and a variety of other things all at the same time to measure and tell you exactly what it, tell the computer exactly what it needs to do. So the electronic suspension is super, super impressive. One thing to note, so on Polaris you have that Pro R, or on the Ultimate models anyway, you have the option to hit that oh crap button. So some people have wondered, are they going to come up with an oh crap button for this electronic suspension system? And the answer is no, they don't have one, but the reason they don't have one is, according to them, they don't need one. With this machine having electronic suspension on all 4 corners and measuring what the suspension's doing or what the characteristics of the machine are doing in 6 different ways at the same time, they don't feel like they need it. And having those sensors down at the bottom of each shock right next to the wheel so they can monitor wheel position, all that kind of stuff, allows the system to react quicker. So a good example is if you're coming to a washout on a Pro R and you have that oh crap button, you're gonna have to move your thumb over to that button, hit the button to stop it. With this machine, and we did have an opportunity to hit some washouts we weren't expecting. This one, because it has the sensors on the front and feels them dropping down instantaneously, nearly instantaneously anyway, because it does that, it basically has a built-in oh crap button. So no real need for it. All in all, the suspension is very, very impressive. One thing, side note on that, some people in our videos that you've seen out there of us on the ride have mentioned that the machine squeaks. What you're hearing squeaking is not the suspension. That is actually the blow-off valve for the supercharger. You will hear it regularly. We didn't obviously get the chance to ride the machine with no helmet, nor would I recommend riding this machine with no helmet. However, with the helmet on, it's not too gnarly, not too upsetting. I would say in comparison to most of the aftermarket blow-off valves that you hear on machines, it's not going to be that loud. Aftermarket blow-off valves tend to be pretty loud. With this one, it's not. It's there. You hear it chirping regularly. Another unique thing, sidebar, about the engine and about the sounds you hear coming from it. It has like a rumble that you hear when you're kind of going at low speed or you're not utilizing the turbochargers or the superchargers. So you're bringing all that air in. It doesn't need it. You're hearing like a rumble of that air not being used, essentially. They call it a growl or something along those lines. To me, it sounds kind of like a chug-a-chug. and you hear it pretty regularly when you're at low speeds kind of chugging along. It's not obnoxious, not annoying, it's just there and something to be aware of. Another question we got a lot was about the cab heat and cab comfort. So seats are great. Seats, honestly, they feel like aftermarket seats. They're not suspension seats, but they feel like it. The bolsters are great on it. You got great harnesses and everything else. The inside of the cab, it all seems next level. It feels like it's really high end, I guess you'd say. Really refined, the interior. One thing we were really impressed about was cab heat. So in the desert, you don't get to ride a ton during the summer, and one of the reasons you don't get to ride is because you have the coolant tubes going through the middle of your machine, and those coolant tubes put off 180, 200 degree temperatures right in between your legs, and that can come through the tunnel and just, you know, warm you up when you're in it. We honestly didn't feel heat coming from the tunnel. Garrett and I were putting our hands on the side panels on both sides, front and back, to see what we felt, to see if we could feel the heat from the coolant tubes coming through the tunnel, and we just didn't. So we asked the Kawasaki engineers about it, and one thing that they said is they did put the cooling tubes, they are coming through the tunnel, but they are down a bit lower than we are familiar with the KRX, so they keep them as low as they could. And they also put through the tunnel, they have a air channel, so it's putting air through the tunnel as well, pulling it in from the front. So that helps with pulling that heat out rather than building up in the tunnel like it has in the past. So, and that really helps with the heat. Honestly, heat was not a problem with the interior temperature. We were in the desert, got up to 114 that day. I think it was 105 when we finished riding, 106, something like that. So it was hot outside, but coming from the cab, it wasn't. It was comfortable in the cab. Interior, well refined, cab heat was awesome. All right, number 10, or the number 10 question that we got was everybody wanted to know how this thing sounded. It's a 4-cylinder machine. It's been used, or a similar motor has been used in their bullet bikes for a while, so people wanted to know how it sounded. So a few things to keep in mind. First, I guess I'll say it sounds great. Like, it sounds awesome. Stock exhaust, stock muffler, all that stuff. It sounds great. It is, it has all the things on it that are required, especially in the state of California, catalytic converter and all that kind of stuff. So it will sound different when the aftermarket gets ahead of it or gets into it. I'm looking forward to seeing what Evolution and others have in store for exhaust systems when this thing gets to market, because I think it's going to sound pretty stinking unique. It sounds awesome. That the supercharger, you hear that, the blow off or whatever when you're going, you hear all the sounds that superchargers make, you hear those, and it's awesome. All in all, it's great. As far as sound in the machine and whatnot, it's not overly loud. Like, you don't hear it super loud. Again, I will say that with the caveat that we wear helmets when we ride. So if you're wearing a helmet, the machine's not going to be super loud. I'll take this opportunity to just real quick plug, and no, we're not being paid for this, but I will plug Cardo systems real quick. So on my helmet here, Garrett and I were communicating the whole time through these Cardo Pack Talks. And they have them in a variety of forms. We use them with headsets as well, with the Pack Talk edges. And I think they're edge phones is what they call them. But it allows you to have that communication. So you can wear a helmet and be safe and still have that communication going on. And then that same Pack Talk edge that I use right there, I will also attach it to the headphones so that we could use those on headphones. So inside the cabin, it's nice and quiet, or not, I wouldn't say nice and quiet. It's not any louder than anything else, but it sure is nice to have those Cardos to be able to have a normal conversation with people rather than yelling at each other back and forth. So sound solid on the machine. All right, that's it for the top 10 questions, but I want to throw in a few other kind of unique things about the machine that just weren't asked about, or that we were told while we were there at this event for media. First thing is, so this machine, you'll notice on the front of the KRX and other Kawasaki machines, it says Kawasaki. This machine has a unique symbol on the front of it. It's called their river mark symbol, and that river mark is reserved for their high-end, top-of-the-top machines. So this is the pinnacle of their side-by-sides, and so that's why it gets the river mark. You'll see it on their, I think it's their Ninja bullet bike. You'll see it on a couple other as well, but anything with that river mark on it, Kawasaki is saying this is the pinnacle of what can be done. So pretty interesting to see that this gets the river mark as opposed to the other machines having just the Kawasaki on them. Next thing, I'm shocked that not as many people asked about braking. Braking on this machine was awesome. It has bigger brakes in the front. They're three piston in the front, 2 piston in the rear. The braking was impressive. We never felt like we needed more. I never felt them fading or anything else. They were impressive the whole way through. The brakes were good, much better than I've seen in the past. So yeah, brakes, I don't know why they weren't asked about, but brakes were impressive as well. Another thing, we were also really impressed with the Garmin Tread. So the Garmin, it comes with the deluxe models, they come with the Garmin Tread 10 built in. It's the display unit that you'll see in some of our video that's right there in the middle. It was really impressive, super responsive and snappy, more than any of the other OEM stuff that you'll see there. The map system for tracking other riders and seeing where they're at, super snappy. You could always see them there. We always knew how far people were behind us, in front of us, everything else. There's also a quick messaging system in there. So if you're stuck, you can tap a little button. It'll send a message to all the other rigs in your ride that says you're stuck and they can come find you. So that audio system was good. It did not come with a sub. So I feel like the audio system needs a sub, but did not come with a sub. So I will say that the Garmin Tread ran the audio system great. The audio system sounded good-ish. Good, it was loud, plenty loud, but it needs a sub. So I would say if you are looking forward to sound in this system, just get the sub from the start and have it installed before you get it. But anyway, I just wanted to mention we were super impressed with the Garmin Tread. We'd love to actually get those installed in our other machines as well. We may look at using those from Garmin in the future. Another little tidbit, the rear seating is stadium seating, so it is offset. It's set up a little bit higher than the front seats, so you can see a little bit better and have a little bit better view when you're riding in the rear. Nothing is more annoying when you're sitting in the back seat than staring right at the seat in front of you, so it's nice to have a little stadium seating in the back and be able to view forward. With seating in mind, the bench seat in the back, that middle seat is not going to be for your 280-pound buddy John. That is going to be for your 10-year-old, your 8-year-old, your 6-year-old. Once you get much bigger than that, it's going to get a little tight back there. So it's a bench seat. It's basically not to add a 5th adult, but to add a 5th person, mainly a youth. I don't think they came out and specifically said that, but that's the truth. Another thing we loved was the doors. So there's a new style to the doors. Their caps kind of come up over the top, so you're not getting pinched. For those who have a KRX, you know what I'm talking about. But they come up over the top. They're really well finished. And then one thing we liked about them as well is they bow out. So you've got extra room when you're sitting for your arms and everything else. So if you're a big boy, you'll probably be fine in this machine. All right, lastly, I am looking forward to seeing what Kawasaki does with this, with the Kawasaki race team. So the Kawasaki race team will be racing this machine in the future. Obviously, it won't be at the Best in the Desert, which is happening today or yesterday. I forget, today or yesterday, one or the other, but it's not gonna be at the Best in the Desert. I think the first race is gonna be in the California 300, I think is what they're calling it, one out of Barstow. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm looking forward to seeing what this does in the race scene. Great machine. I feel like it's got a great platform to get started from. It'll be awesome to see what Kawasaki race team does with it. All right, guys, that's it for this one. So if you have any questions, thoughts, comments, leave them in the comments down below. Garrett and I and Dave will interact in the comments the best we can and answer your questions as you have them. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one.